Six Nations, folks. It's still got 2 rounds to go. I'm once again joined by Graeme from the Rugby4Cast. How are you doing, sir?
Very good, thanks. Very good. How are you?
I am well. Do I dare ask if you have recovered from that TMO call in round 2 as a Scotsman? And is that going to have much effect on the permutations for what we're about to look at in the old favourites for the Six Nations?
You know what? I would say that I was over it, but the amount of people that are asking me if I'm over it has kind of maybe sort of reversed it a bit now. Because as I said, as you mentioned, obviously looking at the permutations and stuff like that, it didn't really affect things that much because Ireland were such heavy favourites. So from my perspective, I was sort of thinking, well, it's maybe changed around for second or third or things like that, but it's not really affected the title chances. But so many people are saying, are you annoyed about it? That I'm sort of maybe starting to get annoyed again. So
Okay, I'll try not to bring that one up again. We are going to have a look at some of the permutations. We'll bring them up for the Six Nations. Obviously, Ireland has been on a pretty barnstorming run, and I assume from that green bar there that Ireland is heavy favourites for not only the Six Nations title but also the Slam.
Yeah, exactly. You can see Ireland's 95% chance plus of taking the win now, winning the Six Nations, and that's because they've got so many bonus points as well now that people are very unlikely to overhaul them. Mathematically, they only need 5 points to secure the title from the next two games, but realistically, they probably only need 4 points because Scotland are unlikely to get two 4-try bonus points from the next two games. So, yeah, the title's all but Ireland's, and I guess the exciting thing is, are they going to get the Grand Slam? And another one is, are they going to get what I think is being termed the Super Slam by some fans, which is the perfect 5-try bonus points in every single game?
Flawless run. Has that ever been done before?
No, I was just looking through it. The nearest that anybody's ever come was actually Ireland last year when they played four of the matches. The only game where they didn't do it was against Scotland, the mighty Scots, in Murrayfield last year, where I think they got two tries.
Okay.
So, and then there's a couple of teams. England in 2003 did 3 tries, and Ireland in 2018 did 3 tries. Three matches with 4 tries. Sorry, 3 matches, 4 tries. But before 2017, the bonus point system didn't exist, so teams weren't perhaps as incentivized.
Aiming for a slam in that regard, like with the bonus points. Okay, so it would be a genuine first for Ireland to do not only back-to-back slams, but if they can get bonus points in every game.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, and then if they did 4 of the games last year, that would mean they in the past 2 Six Nations, they've got 57 out of 58 available points.
Wow.
Which would be
that's pretty dominant.
Yeah, exactly. A real marker for the difference that between all the sides, or between them and everybody else in the Six Nations at the moment, basically. So
yeah, exactly. I don't mean to bring it up again, but just to double check, if Scotland had won that game against France, how much shorter is that green bar and how much longer is that Scottish bar? You're saying it's not too different, I guess, because that final match, Scotland have to go to Dublin, so Ireland were going to be heavy favourites for that one anyway.
Exactly, yeah. We had Ireland. I think Ireland would be 90% chance of winning that game in Dublin. So realistically, Scotland's, the chances, given that Ireland have got England this weekend, and then if you sort of combine those two matches, a 90% game and a 70% game, it probably would add up to, somewhere in the 70s for Ireland at the moment, basically. So it hasn't really, it wouldn't really move things that much because, the task for Scotland would still be quite large. But it would have maybe changed around things for second. Scotland would probably have almost nailed on second at this stage. So it would be very much top 2, Ireland and Scotland, and then, France and England and Wales for third, fourth, fifth, basically. So in some ways, it's kept the middle of the table a little bit more interesting. Although as a Scot, I would have obviously preferred a more boring finish to the Six Nations. So.
What has happened with France's numbers? Because I seem to remember they were pretty decent, with a decent chance going into the comp, but I mean, their form has seemingly fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, well, we had them as pretty much 50-50 with Ireland, which I think would have
Right.
been, most people would have said was fair enough
I
going
think, yeah,
into.
most people were kind of umming and ahhing between France and Ireland,
Yeah, the
especially because
bookies were actually
France
more
had
marginally on
Ireland at
France
home.
because
Yeah, yeah.
exactly as you said, the France-Ireland game was at home. We actually had Ireland as marginal favourites for the whole tournament because of the rest of the fixtures.
Right.
But since then, since that first game against Ireland, it's shifted obviously heavily in favour of Ireland, and then adding in the Italian draw last weekend has
Mm,
really France have, as you can see, uh, still a good chance of second, but not an unreasonable chance of third, fourth, and fifth as well. So, and the algorithm won't adjust, doesn't adjust that fast to form in the past 2 or 3 games. So there'll be a lot of France 2020, 21, 22, 23 in these predictions where they were very, very
mm,
good. Think about France last year and all the games they won, beating the All Blacks and they beat Italy 60
mm.
points to 7 or something.
Yeah,
There's a lot of that France team still in these predictions. So arguably they might be less favoured than these numbers suggest based on
yeah, sure.
current form.
I can
So
see
yeah.
there that Italy is still favoured for the spoon pretty heavily.
Yeah, and again, based on the form, you could make a good case for Italy having a stronger argument for finishing above. But then they've got Scotland at home. I know the Italians are very, there's a lot of Italian tickets that have been sold for that game. The Italian
Okay,
fans are really targeting that game. They think there's a
coming
good
out in
chance.
force.
And as a Scot, I'm not overly confident in this.
Right,
So yeah, but then Scotland at home, and then they've got Wales away. So they do have tricky final fixtures. Whereas
right.
Wales have got tricky fixtures as well, but they do have 2 fixtures at home, so it's
Mm,
possibly slightly easier for Wales. And based again, as I said, on the history and the form over the last 5 years or so, it's probably not unfair to put Italy that far down the bottom.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's an interesting one with the algo because, like, as fans, we tend to be a little bit knee jerk with our kind of reactions. Like, if a team A loses to team B, suddenly, they're hopeless. They're not going to beat anybody. Whereas the algo is, like you say, kind of looking at things more, more over the long term, which is not what we tend to do. So yeah, with Italy and France, it's maybe they're both kind of somewhere in the
It's
middle, I guess. Eh?
It's tough, and it's interesting to talk about, and that's one of the reasons, I like doing this. But I
Hmm.
mean, my gut would be that France are probably a little bit overrated here, and
Yeah,
Italy underrated. But the algorithm has long since been proven better at me than calling games. So,
yeah.
I would tend to go with that over my gut, basically.
What was the bigger upset with the algo? Was it I mean, is that France draw against Italy? Is that like the biggest upset? Because France don't not win against Italy. They always
Yeah.
beat Italy at home.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, they've never lost to Italy at home, and obviously last year in the World Cup they beat them 60 points to 7, an absolutely
Yeah.
massive win, whatever, something around that. Anyway, you can see that we had a 97% chance of France winning that game.
Wow.
Um, I mean, I haven't gone back through and looked at all our predictions ever, but that was there's not going to be many games where you have that level of an upset. I know the
Mm,
cookies were the same. They were paying out at 1.03 here in the UK, which is 97% as well.
mm.
Uh, the draw was 160 to 1. So,
Wow.
if you bet on that
Bit of payday.
payday. So yeah, that was a huge upset. That's definitely the biggest upset of the tournament, and one of the biggest upsets I've seen in a long time. Even though Italy didn't actually win the game, uh, relative to the dominance of one team, that is certainly the biggest upset. So it was a huge result, and Italy, should have won the game. Arguably,
Yeah.
at the end there was a lot of confusion there. I know you did a video on it and you talked about
Mm.
should it have been reset and things like that. So yeah, it was yeah, mean, France have been let off the hook a couple of times in the tournament, haven't they? So it's
Hey, you brought it up this time. That wasn't me.
sorry, let it slip. But yeah, so
How's the algo going generally with the calls? Has the comp been pretty predictable thus far? I mean, apart from that draw.
it's not been too bad. We've got the ones we got wrong. The France Ireland game at the beginning, as you can see, we had
Well, that was more or less a coin toss going into it, wasn't it?
60-40, arguably. I guess you would argue that the level, the margin of Irish win would say that wouldn't accurately reflect a 50-50 game.
Sure.
But then France did have a man sent off, and Ireland are very, very good. So
yeah.
And then that flipped. Before the tournament started, we had France to win against Scotland by 1 point in Murrayfield.
Right.
And the margin of that victory flipped it to a Scotland by 1 prediction, which is basically a 50-50 game as well.
Again,
And
yeah.
it did obviously end up fairly 50-50. So even though we got the result wrong, the forecast was pretty accurate there.
Pretty accurate, yeah.
So it's we've got 3 wrong technically, but I would argue that 2 of those have been. One of them was pretty accurate in terms of the forecast, and yeah, maybe the margin of the France Ireland one was a bit unexpected. But then the France Italy one was the real upset.
I don't think anybody saw that Irish. I mean, the Irish win, yes, but like you said, the margin. I don't think I heard anybody in any area of the world saying Ireland's going to go in and flog France by a record margin. Nobody was really calling that. A few of the French fans were saying, there might be a bit of a hangover. We don't start the competition well. Recently years, we've always started with Italy, so it's kind of been like, a bit of a let off if they played poorly in that first game, but still, nobody was calling,
exactly. It was the
margin.
biggest margin of victory for Ireland in France by a long, long way. I can't remember what the previous one was, but it was certainly less than 10 points, I think. So a 21-point win in France was absolutely huge. I did look back and see in the last sort of 20 years, fixtures in France, what's the biggest home losses for France? And this was the 5th biggest one, with the other ones nearly always being New Zealand, sort of in the mid noughties, basically, when France weren't particularly good anyway, and New Zealand were very. So it was a big loss. So yeah, it was a tough game, but then France played with 14 men for a lot of it, as they did against Italy as well, actually. So I think there's obviously discipline issues there, and if you play 60 minutes with 14 men, that's obviously going to affect.
It's always going to be tough. Yeah, for sure. Now, my eyes are naturally kind of just making the way down the page to week 4 and 5, and I see a lot of green for the away sides in week 4, and then for the home sides in week 5.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is quite an unusual one for the Six Nations, actually. I think I can't remember the exact numbers, but it would be before 2016, 2017. I think there was maybe one weekend across the whole of those 15 or 16 Six Nations where we had 3 away wins. So it was a very, very rare thing for a long time.
It's always that kind of fortress thing, right? Your home is your fortress, and it's really, you have to pay in blood to get a win away.
Exactly, and it's really flipped in recent years. I think last year we had two weekends where they had 3 away wins. There was definitely a few in previous years as well. We've already had one the first weekend, Ireland, England, and Scotland. So we could have another one this weekend. So it's become a lot more common in recent years. Yeah, arguably as a result of the tournaments, arguably getting a little bit closer. Everybody's come together a little bit, maybe apart from Italy, but the other 5 have definitely closed the gap a bit. And yeah, Scotland winning, Ireland winning, and France winning wouldn't be unexpected. I think that's probably maybe based on the French form. You might argue Wales could be favourites, but I think the rest are fair enough. So yeah, it should be an interesting weekend. It's not an unreasonable chance for the home sides as well. This if you look at the 5th weekend, for example, it's pretty heavy on the home teams.
Yeah, 90%, 91%, 83%, whereas the away games look a bit tougher. So England against Ireland at Twickenham is potentially the biggest roadblock in the way of that Grand Slam and Super Slam.
Super Slam, yeah. There's not many times that England are going to have a 24% chance at home. So this is a measure of the dominance that this Ireland side have at the moment. And yeah, based on the way the results have gone so far, Ireland look good. They just so disciplined and so clinical, and and England have looked a little bit suspect so far. So it's I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ireland get 4 tries in Twickenham.
Yeah, and week 5 the Super Slam, man. Oh, Super Slam, Super Saturday. Yeah, it's not looking that super. I think I prefer week 4. Just looking at the fixtures.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I don't know when they organise the fixtures and when they arrange them, but maybe the following weekend needs a bit of looking at. Basically, it's it's a very strong for the home side, and if certain results come to pass this weekend, if Ireland obviously get 4 or 5 points, if Ireland get 5 points, they've won the Six Nations, so it's a formality. If Scotland get 5 points, if Ireland thrash England, and if Wales beat France, then Scotland will have second place locked up. So arguably, and in that case, I think Italy would come last. So there wouldn't be that much to play for. Basically, it could be quite playing for pride, basically.
Anticlimactic in a way, eh?
Yeah. Well, there's always there's a triple crown, which Scotland.
Yeah, true. I always forget about the bloody Triple Crown. To be honest, is that a big deal? I always remember about the Six Nations. I always remember about the Calcutta Cup. I always remember about obviously the slams, but I always tend to forget about the Triple Crown.
I think probably not for Ireland or England. Probably if Scotland won it, that would be the first time that we've won it in a long time. Probably since the 1999 or something like that.
Wow.
Even further back because we lost to England that year. So it would be a long time. So it would be a big deal for Scotland to win it, actually.
Okay.
But I'm sure the teams that win it more often, it's probably less of a big deal. So
Yeah. Okay. And is everything you guys have got in the algo more or less lined up with what the bookies are saying, or are there any kind of big differences?
Unfortunately not. Yeah, the bookies pretty much on same as us. We are. I mean, we obviously got a slight adjustment there, but 90% chance of Ireland winning it. They think Scotland have got a reasonable chance. 1 in 20 of winning it. We're slightly less bullish on it. And looks like they're still accepting bets on England, although as I say, we don't give England much chance at all. And then 60-70% chance of the Grand Slam. It's it's pretty well, as I said, most of the permutations are kind of tied up at this stage. There's still things to play for in the middle. Still things to play for in the middle.
I know your machine kind of runs the predictions thousands of times. In those thousands of times, were there any times when Ireland didn't come out on top?
82 times
out of
10,000.
Right. So you're telling me
there's a few more. There's a few more in there probably, but these are the most likely ones. So this is, as you said, we simulate the tournament 10,000 times, and this shows you a few more of those kind of outcomes in there, basically. So you can see a few more of the actual permutations. Basically.
The race for second actually looks quite interesting because there's a bunch of different countries there, but the race for first is pretty much green.
I mean, in theory, as I say, Ireland have pretty much won it, but anybody, even Italy, can still finish second at this stage, even though I think I had a look at this.
Won a game yet.
They only appear second 22 times out of the 10,000, so it's the chances of that are vanishingly small. But 2 to 5, it's all to play for. Obviously Scotland and France are marginally more towards the top. And England and Wales are more likely to finish 4th and 5th, but that's one of the things that makes the Six Nations quite interesting, actually, because everybody judges quite harshly your finishing position and do you finish 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th? But often there's not much between 2nd and 5th. And a couple of games here or there, a couple of results that don't go your way, last minute tries, things like that, bonus points. It can really, it can make things look a lot worse than they might be, or a lot better than they might be. So it could be. There's a lot to play for, and interesting, as I said, looking at the numbers that teams potentially need. I think, as a Scot, I've been looking at what Scotland needs. I think if we get 5 points from our remaining 2 games, we've got quite a good chance at second. Because
How would you feel about second?
I'd feel pretty good. That would be our best ever Six Nations finish. So that would be a good return. Probably a fair reflection of where the tournament is at the moment. I based on the form at the moment, I think Scotland are the second best team in the Six Nations, a long way distant off Ireland, but based on French form at the moment and things, I think we probably are there. So that would be fair enough in my eyes. But yeah, it would be. Somebody did ask me what I felt about. Would you? Because if England beat Ireland this weekend, then Scotland still have a chance at winning the whole thing. But if that happens, then we obviously have a chance at first, but we also could easily finish third or fourth because
England have got more points. Yeah.
Points. So would you rather Ireland thrashed England, sort of assuming Scotland beat Italy, and Scotland kind of locked up second, or would you rather have a small chance at
A
first?
small chance at first. Surely you want the chance to be alive at the end of that. Surely.
It would make the tournament a lot more interesting and bring that Super Saturday back into it. So it would be very, very good. And my heart would say, yeah, absolutely, let's go for that. But my head, these kind of, if you go through expected points and all this sort of stuff, you sort of say it's probably not going to happen, Graeme. So let's lock up second and that best ever position. So yeah, it's it will be interesting. And in fairness to England, they perform well against Ireland generally, and they have had a couple of bad results. I know they beat Italy and Wales first up, but the performances weren't there, and they did get some bad around it, and obviously they lost to Scotland, and they do tend to bounce back quite well and put in performances. You remember that French game last year where they got beaten quite heavily at home, and then they had to go to Dublin the following weekend and had a man red carded and still put in a real shift and gave Ireland a run for their money. So I think England could be. Yeah, I don't know. I realised earlier I said I thought Ireland would probably win heavily, but maybe backtracking on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, in my head, could I see a repeat of what the French did at Twickenham? For sure, the Irish side is that good, but then I could also see it being tight. So that's a good thing. Like as heavy favourites as Ireland are at the moment, it's good that there's still a little bit of kind of doubt. Like even you saying like, yeah, as long as we beat Italy, there's still that kind of, you're not counting those chickens, like, so yeah, as long as there's that.
Too long to count chickens, basically, so you can't. Yeah, I mean, Scotland get a bonus point against Italy. They in theory, not mathematically, but they would have a good chance of finishing second then. But Scotland are really prone to banana skin, so it wouldn't surprise me if we and Italy, they have put in some performances. They should have got a result against England. They obviously got beaten quite heavily by Ireland in Dublin, but that's not
That's par for the course these days, isn't it?
They should have beaten France. So yeah, they are starting to compete a lot better in the Six Nations. So yeah, it should be. Yeah, I'm definitely not counting that. And then the Wales France game, that I think could be really interesting as well because.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about Wales. So they seem like they can finish sixth, they can finish fifth, they can finish fourth, they can finish third, they can finish second.
Well, they're all over the place, aren't they? I mean, and I mean, literally in the tournament perhaps, but look at all the positions. They're almost equally likely to finish in any position, and they've got such a young team. And every kind of I wouldn't say maybe wrote them off, but they were definitely more likely to finish towards the bottom. And in fairness, they have lost. They are 0 from 3 at the moment, but they have put in some real performances again. And this French team look a bit ropey.
Vulnerable.
Wales at home, they could easily. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn France over, and that could, that would bump them up a lot, and could. Well, it's not gonna shake Ireland, but it could make the middle of the table a lot interesting for the final weekend as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I mentioned the predictions at the end of pretty much most of the videos. If anyone is interested to see where all the match predictions for the algo are, where do they need to go?
It's all up on sports4cast.com. Should be able to find the rugby part of that. I don't think this is up
What
on
other
the
sports
website.
do you guys do apart from rugby?
On the website, there's tennis, but we do actually put a lot of football stuff up. The website is everything doesn't go up in the same places at the moment, but we do cover a lot of football around the world. You can sign up to we've got a Substack. We put out a lot of things, where you can sign up to the rugby mailing list as well. We put all this stuff out on all social media channels: Rugby4Cast, Football Forecast, Tennis Forecast, things like that.
How does football compare to rugby in terms of predictability? Is it less predictable?
It's less predictable in that the third outcome, the draw, is more likely in football. So generally,
draws are pretty rare in rugby.
Apart from last weekend,
apart from when Italy almost beat France.
That was pretty. That was unexpected. So yeah. But yeah, generally in football, I think the home team wins about 40% of the time, 50% of the time, or something, and then it's 25% draw, 25% away team, roughly, maybe slightly more towards the away team. So you get a lot more draws, and we get around about 55% of games accurate, calling it, which doesn't sound great, but then there are 3 outcomes, so you've got a chance.
It's pretty good, yeah.
And then in rugby, though, because you've generally only got 2 outcomes, internationals is around about high 70s, 80% maybe. The club rugby is a bit more unpredictable, maybe in the 70s, high 60s or something. Super rugby is generally the most unpredictable. It's so it's
well, hopefully, if nothing else, it is entertaining. I don't know if you've been watching it, but the first 2 rounds have been pretty good. My Blues are 2 from 2. I hope you guys predicted the Blues 2 from 2. Have you guys got the Blues this weekend, beating the Hurricanes? I hope so.
No, we could have a look actually. Yeah, but it's we did not have the Crusaders to lose. Their
opening 2 games.
That was unusual, basically.
I don't think many people did somehow.
Here you are. Here's the Blues to beat the Highlanders this weekend. Yeah, we go 66%. Looks good.
That's okay. I can take that.
Take that. Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
We did have the Blues to beat
the Drua.
Beat the Drua.
Good. Only that Crusaders loss is the old one.
Yeah. Well.
Okie dokie. Well, yeah. Cheers for coming along and talking some Six Nations. See if your boys can get the fan slam at the end of the day, eh?
That's what we're going for. I think Jim Hamilton termed that. If we win 4 from 5, then that's what's being called the fan slam, because everybody knows we did beat France.
We'll see how you go. All right, man. Cheers for coming along. If you guys want to check out the rugby predictions, check out Graeme's site like he just showed you. But yeah, cheers, Graeme.
Thanks very much. See you later.